Hey YouTube, this is Robert Ness816, and this is a little follow-up video on that Genesis I was telling you about. So I'm in the process of resoldering this extension connector here, this exit connector, whatever. So here's the solder I was telling you about on the top plate. Here's the repair job I had to do on the wires here for the power. And then underneath there is where the voltage regulators are that I had to reapply the thermal paste to. So we'll be back in a couple of seconds here, or minutes or whatever, and I'll show you guys the progress I made on reflowing the solder. So I'm using a 60-40 solder here, so that's 60% tin and 40% lead. Seems to be spreading out pretty nicely. So like I said, we'll be back in a couple minutes, or in your case, a second. Alright, so I've resoldered both sides. They both came out pretty darn good, I think. If my camera will expose for it. So the last thing to do now is just to take my ohm meter here, just check to see if there are any shorts. So I'm just going to kind of walk the little pins across both sides of the board here and just make sure that there's nothing shorting out that would pretty much ruin my Genesis board here. So we'll be back and I'll show you the rest of the inside. Alright, so we're back. Everything checks out, and basically, this is the finished product here until I just kind of like polish up these solder joints a little bit. So I still have this little bit of flux here that needs to be cleaned out, but everything else checks out fine. There's no shorts anywhere. And yeah, the rest of this Genesis is in really nice condition, unfortunately. Or fortunately, I should say, but unfortunately because someone kind of fucked with it. So this is that big glob of solder I was talking about in the other video. So this, I haven't really found any good way to remove that unless I get like some type of solder vacuum or whatever type of thing I can use. But again, it's not going anywhere. And this is that repair job I was talking about. So yeah, whatever. I had to fix that wire. But yeah, whoever decided to work on this thing sure did a number on it. You can see like right here where these posts are, you can see where someone kind of forced it down, so that they're a little bent down in the front here. And, you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. But the main thing is that this edge connector is now properly repaired, and it looks a million times better than it did. So just got to polish it up a little bit, and see, that's the bottom of it there, so little polishing action there, and it should be good to go. Alright, so here's what the bottom of that freshly resoldered or reflowed edge connector looks like. So it looks pretty darn close to how it did originally. I got that solder as thin as I possibly could. So hopefully there won't be any issues when I go to test this out on a Sega CD later on in the video. So yeah, I double checked everything. Everything is fine. Nothing's shorting out. If we look again at the top of the Genesis, let me just move all this stuff out of the way. By the way, I cleaned the the flux off with kind of like a Freon alcohol mix. Works a little bit better, I think. Yeah, just pull the top of this Genesis off. So there's a top. Top came out a little bit nicer, just because, you know, I guess I got into the zone, so, you know, so to speak. So my concentration was a little bit better, but that looks a little bit nicer than the bottom, I think. I may have also cleaned the top of this thing off a little bit better too, so that's probably why. Yeah, so the top of this thing's all good to go. Again, check the top of this edge connector, not shorting out anywhere. So that's pretty much it. And like I said in the last video, these last two holes, these middle ones here, I actually filled them in with crazy glue. I kind of just lined it and made new threads in there. Seems to be working out pretty good. So let's power this puppy on and see how it works. Okay, so you guys get to find out with me if this Genesis is broken or not now. So worst that can happen is I get smoke and sparks. Well, that's a good thing. Let's see if the controllers work. Oh, good. Okay, so that's a good thing. So the Genesis side still works. Turn this off. And now let's plug it into the spare Sega CD. Alright, so the Sega CD is plugged in. Let's see if it works with it. Well, that's always a good sign. Press reset to open up disk tray. Yay! Okay, so let's put in Soulstar. And push the start button on the controller. Huh. It's always a good sign. We'll just let it run through its little startup thingamajiggy. So I have the sound being put out through the Genesis here rather than the Sega CD itself. So I'm not using the mixing cable or the audio cables that are available in the back. Good. That makes me happy. Press the A button, or that's right, you gotta wait with this game. Or push the start button, never mind. Seems to be doing stuff. Good. Oh. There you go, so I'm gonna lose again because I'm only using one hand to control this, but great. Okay, so that's that. Push the reset button again to make the disc come out. And that's about it. So I'll put that back on there. Push the reset button again. Oops, start button I mean. That's fantastic. Good, so if I push start again, I'll be able to see my save data, so that'll tell me if the save battery is good on this thing. Oops, hit the A button. Okay, so I have one saved thing in here, which would be a Sonic CD rather. Good, save battery is good. That makes me happy. Exit. Okay, so I'll turn this off. And everything's working. Great. So, as you can see, guys, this Sega CD is working perfectly now with this Genesis, which I reflowed the connector on. I use a lot of different terms because honestly I forget stuff a lot. But anyways, it's working fine. I basically got this Genesis in a trade with a buddy of mine. I picked this one because it was in much better cosmetic shape than mine was. So mine had like a faded red part here in the front. The on-off switch was worn out on it. So I mean, basically it was just, you know, little nitpicky things. Around here was all scuffed up and everything. So cosmetically, this one is in, you know, much better condition. But the other flaws that it had on it were, you know, kind of a headache. At least I was able to fix them. So. And this Sega CD is also not without its problems. This one actually has a broken side port here, so this is actually being held together with like crazy glue and stuff. So this one was either dropped or someone, it looked like someone actually just kind of smashed the Sega CD onto the side of it. So I wound up picking this up for 20 bucks. It also didn't work. I needed to get a new band for the draw, which I was able to replace. I got the correct one for it, not just like an O-ring or a rubber band. I also cleaned the connector on the top and the bottom here, and basically it works. Save battery is good in it, as you saw, so I now have a very good, or decent anyway, Sega CD. Cosmetically it's in good shape, but you know, it's got its little quirks here and there. So yeah, both of these aren't perfect, but they work, and that's pretty much all that matters, right? And I mean, how often do you see these things popping up for 20 bucks anyways, you know? Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Have a good day.